Next game is the Cardinals and the Texans. The Texans pulled this one out 21-16. Kyler Murray was 20 of 30, 214 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also had 7 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown. This is where Murray becomes arguably a lock-it-in top 10 fantasy quarterback every single week, because this rushing production, 51 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, and a rushing touchdown, is something that he could duplicate every single week. And, Kyler Murray, he has a fairly high ceiling as a passer too, so I wouldn't expect like 500-yard games like CJ Stroud, but he could still get you 300-yard games pretty consistently. Keep playing Kyler Murray. I have Tua and Kyler in a lot of leagues, so I'm kind of using whoever has the best matchup out of those two, because I think Kyler and Tua are at about the same level right now. James Conner, 14 carries, 62 yards. Good to see that he's still the clear lead dog here. No threat to his carries whatsoever. It's going to be interesting to see Michael Carter get worked into this offense to see if that becomes a thing later on in the year. Tony Jones, 1 carry, 10 yards. Rondale Moore had 2 carries for 6, and Hollywood Brown just had the 1 carry for -6. Greg Dortch, 6 catches, 76 yards on 8 targets. Surprisingly, the leading receiver, the leader in targets. Rondale Moore, just the 1 catch for 48 yards and a touchdown. Really weird stuff here. I don't think Greg Dortch is an ad. I think they would rather get Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore the ball more than Greg Dortch. But still, something to keep an eye on. Just don't prioritize him as an ad and expect to use him next week. Trey McBride, 5 catches for 43 yards on 7 targets. This is what he does as a tight end. Like, this is very we'll take it level of tight end, and this is the floor with him. When Zach Ertz gets back, it's going to be interesting to see if he makes any sort of an impact, because Kyler really did like throwing it to Zach Ertz last year, but he also liked throwing it to Hollywood, and Hollywood hasn't been getting any love whatsoever. 2 catches for 18 yards on 5 targets. This makes absolute no sense to me, because Kyler and Hollywood are super close, and Hollywood was the number 1 receiver with Josh Dobbs as the quarterback, so you would think Kyler would just step in, them already having that super close connection, that Hollywood would just take off, and he just hasn't through the first 2 weeks. Still, don't drop Hollywood. Don't trade him away either, because you're selling him at a very low point. I'm still hanging in there with him. I think it's a matter of time before he becomes the clear number 1 receiver here. I do not think that they want Greg Dortch leading their team in receiving every single week. I think they would rather have Hollywood getting the ball and Rondale Moore getting the ball. So hang in there with Hollywood Brown. Don't play him next week, because these first 2 weeks were so weird. But still, have some patience with him. Don't drop him. Don't trade him away. Jeff Swaim, 2 catches for 15 yards. Tony Jones added a catch for 11. Elijah Higgins had a catch for 2. And James Conner had 2 catches for 1 yard on 3 targets. He usually has more passing game volume than this, so hang in there with him as well. For the Texans, CJ Stroud was 27 of 37, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He also had a carry for -1 yard. He's in that Jared Goff sort of level of quarterback. Not quite top 5, arguably top 10 every single week. He doesn't have the rushing game production that, like, say, Kyler Murray does or Josh Dobbs, but he just consistently gets these touchdowns and these yards with a good completion percentage. Keep playing CJ Stroud as you normally would. He's just a really solid option to have on your team. Davis Mills came in and completed a pass after CJ Stroud went down for a play for 2 yards. And Tank Dell again registered for a sack here, so congratulations on the 1.4 QBR. Devin Singletary, 22 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown, 5.1 yards per carry. I don't know what's going on here, because all year this Texans running game hasn't been able to do anything, and now these are back-to-back games of Devin Singletary getting all the work and rushing for over 100 yards. Just amazing stuff, really. If you have Devin Singletary on your team, hold, maybe even trade him, depending on what you think of Dameon Pierce, because Pierce hasn't been able to get anything going all year. Then Devin Singletary comes in, he stinks his first week, and then these weeks 2 and 3, he's just been really good. So Singletary might be a good stash to have on your team. Maybe a sell high, just kind of feel out what you're thinking with Dameon Pierce. If Pierce can come back in, maybe have some of this success with Stroud playing so well, maybe that just opened things up for this running game all of a sudden. But congratulations if you have Devin Singletary, because he has been incredible these last couple weeks. Andrew Beck had a carry for 0 yards. Mike Boone also had 1 carry for 0 yards. Interesting that he isn't getting more work here. It's just all on Singletary. And Stroud just had the 1 carry for -1 yard. So Tank Dell, 8 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. This is the receiver you want to roster. His quickness allows him to just add yards onto any run. He can get open super easily. This can be a safety valve for CJ Stroud at the same time. Keep playing Tank Dell. If anybody in your league is thinking about trading Tank Dell, go get Tank Dell because he's looking like he's going to be a fantasy superstar these last couple weeks. Nico Collins, coming back, had the 7 catches for 65 yards. Led the team in targets, though, with 11. It's just going to be interesting to see how Noah Brown, when he gets involved in this offense, because he was out in this one, I think him and Nico Collins are going to feed off of each other and kind of take away that super high-level fantasy relevance that Nico Collins had at the very beginning of this year, also when Noah Brown was out. Robert Woods, 5 catches, 44 yards on 8 targets. This should be about what Robert Woods will get us every week, about 10 points. Hopefully on the high end, because I'd like to see Dell, Collins, and Noah Brown get more involved. Dalton Schultz, 2 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. Solid day with that touchdown there. Keep playing him as you normally would at your tight end spot. Steven Sims had 2 catches for 25 on 2 targets. John Mechie had a catch for 12. Devin Singletary added 2 catches for 6. And Mike Boone had a catch for 5. So Devin Singletary, not a whole lot of receiving work here is interesting. Even though he dominates the rushing load, maybe Pierce comes back and starts to get more receiving work, but that hasn't been how it is historically. So just keep an eye on that. This receiving work still isn't a huge running back thing in this offense.